My 5-year-old daughter was standing in the driveway holding her stuffed bear, while aftershock dust still hung in the air. My father looked at her, then looked at me, and said, "You can stay, but not her. There's no space." His wife's grandchildren had 3 rooms between them, including a game room. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just said, "Noted." 3 days later, my father opened his front door to a man in a suit holding a certified envelope, and his face lost every ounce of color. My name is Stella Prescott. I'm 34, an ER nurse, and a single mom. And this is the story of how I stopped begging my family for a place at their table and took back what was mine. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Now, let me take you back to a Tuesday in October, the day the ground shook, and everything I thought I knew about my family cracked wide open. There's a particular kind of tired that only ER nurses understand. It isn't just in your bones. It lives behind your eyes, in the space between your thoughts, in the way your hands still smell like nitrile gloves 2 showers later. That Tuesday morning, I came through the front door of our second-floor apartment on Maple Ridge Avenue at 7:15 a.m., 12 hours of chest compressions and IV lines still buzzing in my fingers, and the first thing I saw was Lily. She was sitting at the kitchen table in her unicorn pajamas, bare feet dangling off the chair, a blue crayon in her fist. Biscuit, her stuffed bear, loved bald along one ear, sat propped beside her cereal bowl like a tiny breakfast companion. She didn't look up right away. She was drawing. "Mama, look." She held up the paper. A rectangle with a triangle roof, 2 crooked windows, and a red door we didn't actually have. Above the roofline, she'd drawn 2 hearts, just floating there, like they were keeping the house from blowing away. "That's our house, Mama." I taped it to the fridge next to last week's butterfly. That fridge door was the only gallery that mattered. I made her a sandwich. Peanut butter, crust cut off, sliced into a butterfly shape because I'd done it once when she was 3, and now it was law. My eyes were closing on their own. But I sat with her, and we talked about the butterfly, and I plugged in the little star-shaped nightlight she couldn't sleep without, even during daytime naps. On the shelf by the hallway closet, there was a cardboard box with Mom's things written in my own handwriting from years ago. My mother's belongings, what little I'd kept. I hadn't opened it fully in years. I wish I had sooner. Let me tell you about Thanksgiving. Last November, my father Gerald invited me and Lily to his house for the holiday. "Family's family," he said on the phone, in the voice he uses when he wants to sound warm but doesn't quite get there. I bought a new dress for Lily, sunflower yellow, her favorite. I made a sweet potato casserole from scratch at 2 in the morning between shifts. When we arrived, the dining room table was set for 8. China plates, cloth napkins, the works. My stepmother Diane had outdone herself. Candles, a centerpiece with dried eucalyptus, place cards written in her careful cursive. Lily's name wasn't on any of them. "Oh, sweetie," Diane said, her hand fluttering to her chest the way it does when she's about to say something terrible with a smile. "The kids' table is so much cozier for Lily. It's right in the kitchen, she'll love it." The kids' table was a folding card table with paper plates. Lily sat there alone. My half-sister Megan's 2 children, 7 and 4, were at the main table, flanking my father like little sentries. Gerald had his arm around Megan's oldest, ruffling his hair. "There's my boy." When Lily waved at him from the kitchen doorway, he nodded. Just a nod. Like she was a neighbor's kid he was being polite to. I cut Lily's turkey into small pieces. I told myself, at least she has grandparents. At least she has somewhere to go on holidays. I'd been telling myself that for 24 years. At one point during dinner, Diane stepped into the hallway to take a phone call. I heard 2 words before she lowered her voice. Birchwood House. I didn't know what that meant. Not then. I should explain something about the math in my father's house. It's a particular kind of arithmetic where one daughter's needs always round up and the others always round down. Megan, my half-sister, 29, Diane's biological daughter, got a car at 19. A used Honda, nothing extravagant, but Gerald drove it to the house with a bow on the hood. When I turned 19, I was already working nights at a nursing home to pay for community college. No car, no beau. When I asked once, just once, Gerald said, "Megan needs help. You're independent. You should be proud." I filed that sentence away. I filed a lot of sentences away. Megan's daycare? Gerald paid. My student loans? Mine. Megan's rent when she moved back in with 2 kids? 0, because she never left. My rent? 38% of a paycheck that was already stretched across diapers, formula, and a second-floor apartment with a radiator that banged like a fist all winter. Every time I noticed the gap, I'd hear Diane's voice in my head. "You're so sensitive, Stella." Or Gerald's, "Don't start." After enough years, I stopped starting, I stopped noticing, or I told myself I did. But Lily noticed things I tried not to. One Sunday, she came home from Gerald's house and showed me a drawing she'd made. Our family. She'd drawn 6 people. Me, her, Gerald, Diane, Megan, and Megan's kids. In the picture, everyone was holding hands in a line. Except Lily. She'd drawn herself standing a little to the side, holding Biscuit. "Mama, how come I'm always the extra one?" She was 4 when she said that. I didn't know then that my independence wasn't something I'd chosen. It was something they'd stolen from me. Literally. The earthquake hit at 2:47 on a Tuesday afternoon. I had just picked Lily up from preschool. We were in the apartment. She was on the living room rug showing Biscuit a picture book when the floor moved. Not shook. Moved. Like something massive had turned over beneath us. The bookshelf went first. It swayed once and then tipped forward, spilling paperbacks and picture frames across the carpet. Lily screamed. I grabbed her and pulled us both under the kitchen table, my body over hers, my hand pressing her head against my chest. I could feel her heart hammering through her shirt, fast, small, like a bird trapped in a paper bag. The shaking lasted 11 seconds. It felt like a year. Then the aftershock, 15 minutes later. Shorter, but enough to crack the load-bearing wall in the hallway from floor to ceiling. A chunk of ceiling plaster came down in the bathroom. Dust hung in the air like fog. The building groaned. By evening, the landlord arrived with a city inspector. Red tag. The building was structurally compromised, pending full inspection. Everyone out by tomorrow morning. I stood in the parking lot with Lily on my hip, watching our neighbors carry boxes to their cars. I called my renter's insurance from the hood of my Corolla. Coverage for damaged belongings? Yes. Temporary housing assistance? No. Not under my policy. The nearest motel was $89 a night. I had $1,100 in checking. That was rent money. That was all of it. Lily was quiet. She had Biscuit in a death grip, and her eyes were glassy, and she kept looking back at the building like she was waiting for it to fall. There was one number I hadn't dialed in months, my father's. I sat in my car in the parking lot and made the call. Gerald picked up on the 4th ring. I could hear a television in the background. Some game show, audience applause, Diane laughing at something. Normal evening sounds in a house with 4 bedrooms and a game room and no structural cracks running down the walls. "Dad, we had an earthquake. Our building's been red tagged. Lily and I need a place to stay for a couple of weeks until I figure something out." Silence. Then, "Hold on." I heard him set the phone down. Muffled voices. Diane's voice. Low, quick, sharp. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew the tone. I'd been hearing that tone for 24 years. It was the tone that preceded every no I'd ever received in that house, always wrapped in something reasonable. Gerald came back on. He cleared his throat. "You can come, Stella, but Diane says there's no room for the girl. Megan's kids have their rooms, the game room. You know how it is. It's tight. Dad, she's 5. She can sleep on my floor, on a sleeping bag. She just needs a safe place." Another pause. Diane's voice again, clearer this time, close to the phone. "Tell her it's only temporary anyway. The girl can stay with a friend or something." The girl? Not Lily. Not your granddaughter. The girl. Gerald sighed. It's Diane's house, too. She says no space. Just you. We can figure something out for the child. I looked in the rearview mirror. Lily was in her car seat, biscuit pulled tight to her chin, watching the red-tagged building through the window, dust still in her hair. Noted, I said, and I hung up. I drove. I didn't know where yet. I just needed the car to move, needed the road to unspool in front of me so I wouldn't have to sit still with what had just happened. The streetlights were coming on. Caldwell looked the same as it always did at 6:30 in the evening. People walking dogs, sprinklers running on lawns, the taco truck parked outside the hardware store. The world hadn't ended. It just felt like it. Lily was quiet for 6 blocks. Then, "Mama, are we going to Grandpa's house?" My hands tightened on the wheel. "No, baby, we're going to Auntie Rachel's." "Oh." A pause, then smaller. "Is it because Grandpa doesn't have room for me?" I almost hit the curb. Am I too big? I pulled over. I put the car in park on a residential street I didn't recognize, under a sycamore tree that was dropping leaves onto the windshield, and I turned around in my seat. Lily wasn't crying. Her eyes were wide and serious, and she was looking down at Biscuit like she was asking him the same question. I reached back and took her hand. It was so small. It was always so small. "Lily, you are not too big. You are not too much. And you will always, always have room with me. Do you understand?" She nodded, hugged Biscuit, looked out the window. She didn't cry, and somehow, that was worse than if she had. I turned back to the road and drove. My jaw ached from clenching. Something had shifted inside me. Not the hot kind of anger, not the kind that makes you shout. Something colder. Something with patience. I opened my phone's notes app at the next red light and typed, October 14th, 6:22 p.m. Gerald refused shelter for Lily. Diane. No space. Direct quote, the girl. That was timestamp number 1. Rachel didn't ask a single question. She opened the door, saw Lily on my hip with dust still in her hair, saw the duffel bag over my shoulder and whatever was living on my face, and stepped aside. "Guest room's made up. There's mac and cheese on the stove." That was Rachel Tobin, 35, fellow ER nurse, built like a point guard and just as direct. She'd been my person since our first code blue together 6 years ago, when she'd looked at me over a crashing patient and said, "You're good at this. Don't let anyone tell you different." We'd been friends since. She put on a cartoon for Lily, made her a cup of warm milk with honey. Within 5 minutes, Lily was asleep on Rachel's couch, Biscuit tucked under her chin, her breathing finally slow and even. First real rest since 2:47 that afternoon. Rachel handed me a mug of tea I hadn't asked for and sat down across from me. "Tell me," I told her. She didn't interrupt. She didn't gasp. When I finished, she said very quietly, "That's not a space problem, Stella. That's a priority problem." At 9 o'clock, my phone buzzed. Gerald. "Stella, don't be dramatic. Diane didn't mean it like that. She just meant the house is tight right now. You know Megan's kids need their rooms for school. Lily is 5. She needs a floor and a blanket. Your house has 4 bedrooms. You're twisting things. You always do this. This is why it's hard with you." I stared at the ceiling. Classic. Turn the victim into the problem. I hung up and opened Instagram. Megan had posted 2 hours ago a photo of the game room with 2 new beanbag chairs, sparkle filter, caption, "Best surprise for my babies. #blessed #family. First, I screenshotted it." Timestamp number 2. The next morning, my phone rang while I was pouring Lily's cereal. The screen read, Diane Whitmore. In 7 years of having her number, she had never once called me directly. Every communication went through Gerald, a system she'd designed, I realized much later, so there'd never be a record of her own words. Until now. "Stella, sweetie, hi." Warm, musical. The voice she uses at school functions and church picnics. "I am just so sorry about the earthquake. I've been thinking about you all night." "Thank you, Diane. Listen, I talked to your father and we really do want to help. You are welcome here, of course you are. But I think it would be better for everyone if Lily stayed with your friend for a bit. Just until things settle. Megan's youngest just started sleeping through the night, and you know how it is. Another child in the house. The disruption. Lily isn't disruption. She's 5, and she's quiet. Oh, sweetie, I don't mean it like that. She's just a lot, you know, active. And honestly, she lowered her voice, as if sharing a confidence. If you'd had a husband, this wouldn't even be an issue, would it? The kitchen faucet dripped twice. I watched a bead of water fall. I didn't take the bait. Not the husband comment, not the tone, not the sweetie. I let 5 seconds of silence sit there. I understand your position, Diane, clearly. Oh, good, sweetie, I'm so glad we can. I said I understand it. I didn't say I accept it. Don't call me about this again. I hung up. Then I wrote down every word in my notes app while it was fresh. Timestamp number 3. And there was something Diane had said. A small thing. Maybe nothing. Besides, this house was supposed to be for our family anyway. This house. Supposed to be. Our family. Anyway. I didn't know what it meant. But I underlined it. That night, after Lily was asleep, I lay on Rachel's guest bed and let the memories come. Not the soft focus kind, the accounting kind. My 16th birthday, Megan, then 11, had gotten a full party the year before. Catered, 30 kids, a DJ in the garage. For my 16, Gerald handed me a card with a $20 bill and said, "We forgot to plan something. Sorry, kid." Diane was in Cancun with her sister that week. Nobody forgot. I just wasn't worth remembering. My nursing school graduation, 4 years of night shifts and study sessions in hospital break rooms, and I walked across that stage alone. Gerald said he couldn't make it. Megan had a dance recital. A recital. For an 11-year-old. He chose a pirouette over a diploma. The day Lily was born. Gerald showed up at the hospital 20 minutes after delivery. He stood in the doorway. Didn't hold her. Didn't sit down. "You should have waited until you were married," he said. Then he left. Diane didn't come at all. When Megan had her first baby 3 years later, Diane moved in for 3 weeks. Gerald bought an $800 crib and cried in the delivery room. I kept a list of these moments for years. Not written down, just etched into the soft tissue of my memory. The Christmas I was 13 and found 3 gifts under the tree for me and 11 for Megan. The Easters where Lily's basket was a paper bag. The way Diane introduced me at neighborhood barbecues. "This is Gerald's daughter from before." From before. Like I was a rough draft. But the worst thing they ever did to me wasn't a forgotten birthday or a skipped graduation. It was the thing they took. The thing I didn't even know existed. Not yet. But that was about to change. For years I carried this question like a stone in my pocket. Was I the difficult one? Was I too sensitive? Too needy? Too much? The way they always said? I rearranged myself so many times to fit into that family that I forgot what my original shape looked like. I wonder if you know that feeling. If you've ever shrunk yourself to keep the peace, and then one day looked in the mirror and couldn't find what was missing. Tell me in the comments, because I don't think I was the only one folding herself into smaller and smaller squares. I need to tell you about my grandmother. Her name was Edith Prescott, my mother's mother. After my mom died in a car accident when I was 8, Grandma Edith was the one who kept me breathing. Every other weekend she'd pick me up in her green Buick and drive me to her little house on Birchwood Street. I remember the lavender bushes along the front walk, the way the kitchen always smelled like cornbread and coffee, the creak of the porch swing where she'd read to me until the fireflies came out. Then Gerald married Diane. I was 10. The visits got shorter, then less frequent. Then Gerald started saying things. "Grandma's getting forgetful, Stella. It's too hard for her." Then, she moved. Somewhere in Arizona, I think. Then, "She doesn't want to confuse you, sweetheart. It's better this way." By 12, I stopped asking. I believed him. I believed that the woman who used to braid my hair and sing me hymns in the kitchen had simply decided I wasn't worth the drive anymore. That grief does that to people. That maybe she looked at me and saw my dead daughter, and it was too much. I carried that for 22 years. The belief that I had been gently, lovingly abandoned by the last person on my mother's side who might have claimed me. But lying in Rachel's guest room that night, staring at the ceiling, one word floated up through the dark. Birchwood. Diane had said the Birchwood house on the phone at Thanksgiving. My grandmother had lived on Birchwood Street. I sat up. My pulse was doing something it only does in the ER. That focused clinical acceleration that means something important is happening. I walked to the closet. The box marked Mom's Things was on top of the stack. I opened it. It was 2 a.m. Rachel's house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the small ticking of a wall clock somewhere down the hall. I sat cross-legged on the guest room floor and lifted the flaps of the box I'd carried through 4 apartments and never fully unpacked. My mother's reading glasses, tortoiseshell, one arm bent, a scarf that still smelled faintly like her, or maybe I just needed it to. 3 birthday cards she'd written me before she died, tucked in a rubber band. A small gold locket with a photo of us, me at 5, her at 31, the same age I was when I had Lily. At the bottom, underneath a folded quilt, there was a large manila envelope. It was yellowed at the edges, postmarked 2003, and the return address read, Edith Prescott, 412 Birchwood Street, Caldwell, California, 93711. My hands were shaking when I opened it. Inside, a letter, handwritten on lavender stationery in my grandmother's careful script, and behind the letter, a stapled document, dense, legal, notarized. The letter read, My dearest Stella, your mama would want you to always have a home. I've set up a trust for you. The Prescott Family Trust. The house on Birchwood and $210,000 in savings. When you turn 25, it's all yours. I love you, baby girl. Don't let anyone tell you you're not wanted. Grandma Edith. The document was a copy of the trust deed, dated 2004. The Prescott Family Trust. Sole beneficiary, Stella Marie Prescott. Trustee, Gerald A. Whitmore. I turned 25 in 2016. That was 9 years ago. Nobody told me. Not once. Not ever. A trust. A house. $210,000. And my father, the man who said there was no room for Lily, was the one holding the keys. I didn't sleep. I sat on that guest room floor with the trust deed spread across my lap and opened my phone. First search, 412 Birchwood Street, Caldwell, California. The county assessor's office had the records online. Property, single-family residence, 1,420 square feet, built 1967. Current ownership status, sold, April 2019. Transferee, Gerald A. Whitmore and Diane K. Whitmore. Transfer type, quitclaim deed. Sale price recorded, $0. $0. A free transfer from the Prescott Family Trust to my father and his wife, on a house that was supposed to be mine. Second search, Edith Prescott, Caldwell, California. Results, Sunridge Senior Community, Tucson, Arizona. Resident profile, Activities Committee member, age, 82. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. She was alive. She was in Tucson. She was on an activities committee. She hadn't disappeared. She hadn't forgotten me. She hadn't chosen to stop caring. She'd been cut off. The same way you cut a phone line, deliberately at the source, so the person on the other end thinks nobody's calling. I went back to the property records. The trail was simple once you knew where to look. In 2019, Gerald transferred 412 Birchwood from the trust to himself and Diane, using a quitclaim deed that apparently bore my signature. That same spring, they sold their old house across town. Used the Birchwood equity and the trust funds as a down payment on their current home. The 4-bedroom with the game room and the beanbag chairs, and absolutely no space for a 5-year-old girl with a stuffed bear. My father had stolen my inheritance, sold my grandmother's house, and used the money to build a home where my daughter wasn't welcome. I closed the laptop. My hands were steady now. steady as they've ever been, and I was done being sensitive. I waited until 7 in the morning, Arizona time, to call. I didn't want to scare an 82-year-old woman. I also didn't trust my voice yet, so I paced Rachel's backyard in the gray morning light, rehearsing what to say, until I realized there was no way to rehearse something like this. Sunridge Senior Community's front desk patched me through. 3 rings. Then a voice, thin but clear, with the same slight rasp I remembered from childhood bedtime stories. Hello? Grandma, it's Stella. Silence. 1 second, 2, 3. I heard a sharp intake of breath. Stella, is that baby girl? And I broke. Not loud, I'm not a loud crier, but the tears came fast and hot, and I pressed my hand over my mouth in Rachel's backyard and let 22 years of believing I'd been forgotten drain out of me. She was crying too. I could hear it in the way her words caught. I've been writing to you every Christmas for 22 years, she said. Every single one came back. Your father told me you didn't want contact. He said you'd moved on. He said it would only confuse Lily to have... He told me the same thing about you. Another silence. This one heavier. I told her what I'd found. The trust deed, the property transfer, the $0 quitclaim. I heard her breathing change, sharpen. I never authorized any sale or withdrawal, Stella. Never. That trust was for you. Only you. Grandma, I think he forged my signature. A long pause. When she spoke again, her voice wasn't thin anymore. It was steel. Then we're going to get it back. Every cent. Every brick. She told me she still had copies of everything, including 22 return-to-sender envelopes. Every Christmas letter she'd mailed me, sent back in Gerald's handwriting. Call a lawyer, baby girl. Today. I'll tell you exactly which documents to ask for. Rachel knew a guy. Actually, Rachel knew a guy who knew a guy. Her cousin's divorce attorney, who referred us to Nathan Okafor, a trust and estate litigation lawyer with an office on Caldwell Boulevard and 15 years of experience peeling apart exactly this kind of mess. I called him that afternoon. He had an opening the next morning. His office smelled like printer toner and black coffee. He was tall, mid-40s, with reading glasses he kept pushing up his nose, and a calm that reminded me of the best surgeons I'd worked with, the ones who never raise their voice because they don't need to. I laid everything on his desk. The trust deed, my grandmother's letter, the property records printout, the quitclaim transfer. He read each document once, then again, then removed his glasses and looked at me. Ms. Prescott, as trustee, your father had a fiduciary duty to manage this trust solely in your interest. Selling the property and distributing the funds without your knowledge or consent is a breach of that duty. And if your signature on these documents is forged? He tapped the quitclaim deed. That's felony forgery under California Penal Code 470. He outlined the steps. First, a beneficiary request letter. Certified mail. Return receipt. To Pacific Western Trust Company demanding all distribution records, withdrawal authorizations, and associated signatures. The bank had 30 days to respond. Second, once we had the documents, a forensic document examiner would compare the signatures. He already had someone. Dr. Laura Sims, court qualified, frequently used by the DA's office. If the signatures don't match, Nathan said, we file a petition in probate court and refer the forgery to the district attorney. This isn't just a civil matter, Ms. Prescott. This is potentially criminal. Then he said the thing that stopped me cold. One more thing. If those trust funds were used as a down payment on your father's current home, that house is traceable proceeds, meaning the house they told your daughter there was no room in may not even legally be theirs. You know what I kept thinking, sitting in that leather chair with the trust deed in my lap? That every time Gerald said, "You're independent, you should be proud," he wasn't complimenting me. He was covering his tracks. Every time Diane said, "You're so sensitive," she was making sure I'd never look too closely. They turned my own self-doubt into a lock on a door I didn't know existed. Have you ever realized that the thing people criticized you for was actually protecting them? Not you? I think about that a lot now. Nathan mailed the beneficiary request that same afternoon. Certified. Return receipt requested. Tracking number logged. The letter went to Pacific Western Trust Company's Legal Compliance Department, demanding every document associated with the Prescott Family Trust, distribution authorizations, withdrawal receipts, notarized signatures, correspondence. 30 days to respond? 30 days. In the ER, 30 minutes can mean the difference between a save and a code. 30 days felt like a geological age, but Nathan was clear. Don't tip them off. Don't confront your father. Don't mention the trust, Birchwood, or your grandmother. If he suspects you're building a case, he'll destroy what he can. So I played the part. The hardest role I've ever held. And I've held a mother's hand while telling her that her son didn't make it. Gerald called twice that week. Casual, checking in, asking if I'd figured things out with housing. His voice was so normal it made my skin crawl. Normal the way a bandage looks clean when the wound underneath is septic. Working on it, I said. That was all I gave him. On Thursday, he called again. You're not still upset about the room thing, are you? Diane feels terrible. He said this the way you'd report weather. Light rain. Diane feels terrible. Might clear up by the weekend. I'm fine, Dad. Good. That's my girl. I hung up and swallowed something hot and sour at the back of my throat. That evening, Lily was at Rachel's kitchen table again, drawing. She held up the new picture. A house. Bigger this time, with 3 windows and a garden and a red door. She'd written 2 words at the top in wobbly kindergarten letters. Our house. This is where we're gonna live, Mama, I decided. I stuck it to the fridge next to the others. Then I went to the bathroom, shut the door, and pressed my forehead against the cool tile until my breathing evened out. 27 days to go. The documents arrived on a Tuesday. Nathan called at 10:14 a.m. Come to my office. Bring nothing. Touch nothing when you get here. I'll show you everything. 40 minutes later, I was sitting across from his desk, and he was laying out 3 documents side by side like a surgeon displaying x-rays. The first, Trust Distribution Authorization, dated March 14, 2019. A request to Pacific Western Trust Company to release $210,000 from the Prescott Family Trust to Gerald A. Whitmore. At the bottom, a signature, Stella M. Prescott. The second, Quitclaim Deed, dated April 2, 2019. Transfer of property at 412 Birchwood Street from the Prescott Family Trust to Gerald A. Whitmore and Diane K. Whitmore. Another signature, Stella M. Prescott. I leaned in close. The handwriting was careful. Someone had practiced, but the S was wrong. I've signed my name 10,000 times on patient charts, on medication orders, on insurance forms. My S starts with a sharp downstroke. This one curved. And my P in Prescott has a closed loop at the top. A habit from my mother's handwriting that I copied as a child. This P was open. It wasn't my signature. It wasn't close. Nathan slid a 3rd page across the desk. Dr. Laura Sims, Forensic Document Examiner, her preliminary analysis. I read the key line. Based on comparison with known exemplars, the questioned signatures exhibit significant divergence in letter formation, pen pressure, and baseline alignment. Preliminary conclusion: high probability the questioned signatures were not produced by the stated signatory. Final report in 10 days, Nathan said. But, Ms. Prescott, it's confirmed. He pointed to the notary stamp on the quitclaim deed. The name printed beneath it, Janet L. Fry. He'd already looked her up. Janet Fry was a friend of Diane's. They'd worked together at the school district for years. A notarized document signed by someone who wasn't there, stamped by the stepmother's friend. This wasn't carelessness. This was planned. 2 days after the documents arrived, Gerald invited me to dinner. Just me. No drama, no big deal. Diane's making pot roast. We just want to see you. Nathan said, Go. Observe. Say nothing of substance. California is a 2-party consent state, so no recording, but write down everything the moment you leave. I went. The house smelled like rosemary and onions. Diane greeted me at the door with a hug that lasted exactly 1 second too long, the kind designed to be witnessed. Megan was on the couch with her kids, who were running laps between the living room and the game room. The game room, with its beanbag chairs and wall-mounted TV, and enough square footage for a child-sized sleeping bag, if that child's name had been something other than Lily. Dinner was normal. Excessively normal. Diane complimented my scrubs. Gerald asked about the hospital. Megan showed me photos of her kids' Halloween costumes on her phone. Everyone smiled. Nobody mentioned the earthquake. Nobody mentioned the fact that my daughter was sleeping at a friend's house because this family had turned her away. Then, between the pot roast and dessert, Gerald leaned back in his chair and said, casually, the way you'd ask someone to pass the salt, "Hey, by the way, you haven't been getting any weird mail, have you? Some trust company sent something to our address by mistake. Junk mail, probably." His eyes sharpened, just for a second, just enough for me to see. "Trust company," I said. "No. Why would they?" He relaxed, reached for his water glass. "No reason, just junk." Diane changed the subject to Megan's birthday party next weekend. I helped clear the plates. I said goodnight. I walked to my car. Then I opened my notes app. October 29th. 7:48 p.m. Gerald asked about trust company mail. Nervous. Diane redirected conversation immediately. He knew something was moving. He just didn't know how much. The smear campaign started on a Wednesday. I woke up to 11 text messages from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months. Aunt Carol, Gerald's sister. "Stella, I'm hearing some troubling things. Your father is heartbroken." Uncle Roy. "Family shouldn't sue family. Whatever this is, you need to drop it." A cousin I'd met twice. "Diane says you're going through something. We're praying for you. Praying for me." That's the phrase people use when they've decided you're the problem and they want you to know it without getting their hands dirty. I scrolled through the group chat Gerald's family used for holidays and birthdays. Diane had posted a message at 9 p.m. the night before, a paragraph and a half, perfectly punctuated, dripping with rehearsed anguish. "As many of you know, Stella has been going through a difficult time since the earthquake. Unfortunately, she is now making false accusations against Gerald and me regarding family finances. We are devastated. We have done nothing but love and support her for 24 years, and this is how she repays us. Please keep our family in your thoughts." 63 heart reactions, 22 comments. Not one person asked for my side. Then Gerald called. No more pot roast voice, cold. "I don't know what you're doing, Stella, but you need to stop. This is family business. You're embarrassing yourself." I said nothing. "Are you listening to me?" "I'm listening." "Then fix this." I hung up. Megan posted on Facebook that evening. Public. When someone bites the hand that feeds them. Prayers for my parents who've done nothing but love unconditionally. 47 likes within the hour. I screenshotted everything. Every message, every comment, every timestamp. I forwarded them to Nathan in a single email with one line, "For the file." I didn't defend myself in the group chat. A defense implies there's a trial of opinion. I wasn't interested in opinions. I was interested in evidence. Nathan called that night. His voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. "Forensic report is in. It's confirmed. Signatures are forged. Are you ready to file?" I sat in Nathan's office at 8:30 the next morning and signed my name, my real name, the one nobody had to forge, on every document he put in front of me. The probate court petition was 32 pages. It read like a medical chart for a dying family, clinical, precise, and devastating. Breach of fiduciary duty by trustee Gerald A. Whitmore. Fraudulent transfer of trust real property at 412 Birchwood Street. Unauthorized distribution of $210,000 in trust funds. Demand for full restitution, plus accrued interest. Removal of Gerald as trustee and appointment of an independent successor. Attached. The trust deed, the forged distribution authorization, the forged quitclaim deed, Dr. Sims's forensic report, and 22 pages of property records. Separately, Nathan filed a criminal referral with the Caldwell County District Attorney's Office. Forgery under California Penal Code Section 470, notary fraud, and a flag for elder financial exploitation. Because Edith Prescott had been systematically cut off from her granddaughter while her trust assets were looted. And from Tucson, overnight, FedEx delivered the final piece. Grandma Edith's sworn declaration, notarized at Sunridge Senior Community, 6 pages of her clear, firm handwriting converted to typed text and signed with a hand that didn't shake. She stated she had established the trust, never authorized any distribution, never signed any transfer documents, and had been told by Gerald that Stella did not wish to have contact, a claim she now knew to be false, evidenced by 22 Christmas letters returned in Gerald's handwriting. Nathan filed everything with the court that afternoon. Then he prepared the certified demand letter, 14-day response deadline, addressed to Gerald and Diane Whitmore at their current residence. "Once this is served," Nathan said, "there's no taking it back." I looked at the stack of documents on his desk. 9 years of theft, 22 years of lies. One 5-year-old girl told there was no room for her. I wasn't the one who started this. I'm just the one finishing it. The certified demand letter was delivered on a Monday at 11:47 a.m. I know the exact time because USPS tracking updated on my phone while I was starting an IV on a 60-year-old man with chest pains. I glanced at the notification. Delivered. Signed by G. Whitmore, and went back to my patient. The ER doesn't pause for family implosions. Gerald called at 6:32 that evening. I was buckling Lily into her car seat outside Rachel's apartment. I answered on speaker by accident, then quickly took it off. His voice was different. Not the patriarch voice, not the pot roast voice. Something I'd never heard from him before, the voice of a man reading a document he can't make disappear. "Stella, what is this? What have you done? You have 14 days to respond through your attorney. I have nothing else to say to you." "This is insane. I'm your father. You can't—" Diane is hysterical. She's— In the background, Diane. Not the musical church picnic voice now. High, shredded, and beneath that, Megan crying. "That trust was family money, Stella. I managed it for everyone's benefit." I caught that. I managed it. Not I didn't do it. Not there's been a mistake. He managed it. Past tense. Admission wrapped in justification. "You managed it into your down payment. 14 days, Dad." I hung up. He called back. 4 times in 20 minutes. I let each one ring through to voicemail. I didn't listen to any of them. I saved them. Rachel was waiting at the door. She looked at my face and handed me a mug of chamomile without a word. "How do you feel?" I sat on her couch. Lily was inside, drawing at the table again. Another house. More windows this time. More hearts on the roof. Like I should have done this years ago. Diane did not go quietly. I didn't expect her to. Quiet isn't in the playbook of someone who's spent 24 years controlling a family's narrative with sweet smiles and strategic phone calls. The escalation came in 3 waves. Wave 1, the extended family. Diane called my mother's sister, Aunt June, who lived in Oregon and hadn't spoken to Gerald in years. Told her I was fabricating allegations about a trust that never existed, and that I was emotionally unstable since the earthquake. Aunt June, to her credit, called me and asked for my side. I told her to call Grandma Edith. Wave 2, social media. Diane posted a 12-paragraph essay on Facebook. Public. I won't quote the whole thing, but the opening line was, "For 24 years I have tried to love a child who was not my own, and today my heart is shattered." 214 reactions. Comments full of prayer hands and crying emojis. A woman I'd never met called me ungrateful in the thread. Wave 3, Gerald's email. It arrived at 11 p.m., sent from his personal account to mine. "If you don't drop this, I will make sure everyone knows what kind of mother you are, leaving your child with strangers after an earthquake instead of coming to family. Think about what you're teaching Lily. Leaving my child with strangers." He meant Rachel. The woman who opened her door without conditions while he put conditions on a 5-year-old. And he was threatening to use my motherhood against me, the same man who didn't hold Lily when she was born. I forwarded the email to Nathan with one line. Add this to the file. Nathan's response came in 4 minutes. Retaliation. Potential witness intimidation. I'm supplementing the petition. This helps us, not them. I turned off my phone. Lily was asleep, biscuit under her chin. I watched her breathe for a long time. Teaching Lily? I was teaching her that nobody gets to steal your future and call it love. Grandma Edith landed at Caldwell Regional Airport on a Friday afternoon, 3 weeks before the court hearing. Southwest Airlines, 1 carry-on, orthopedic shoes, and a spine made of rebar. I spotted her at baggage claim before she saw me. She was smaller than I remembered, her shoulders narrower, her hair white where it used to be silver, but she stood the way she always had. Straight-backed, chin up, like a woman who'd buried a daughter and survived it and wasn't about to be bent by anything less. When she saw me, she stopped walking. Her hand came up to her mouth. And then she opened her arms, and I walked into them. And for a few seconds I was 8 years old again, standing in a lavender-scented kitchen on Birchwood Street, and nobody had lied to me yet. We drove to Rachel's house. Lily was in the living room, wearing a tutu over her jeans, arranging biscuit on a pillow throne. She looked up when we walked in, at this small, white-haired woman she'd never seen before. Grandma Edith knelt down, slowly, one knee at a time. Hello, sweet girl. I'm your great-grandma Edith. I've been waiting a very long time to meet you. Lily studied her face with that 5-year-old seriousness that holds nothing back. Do you like butterflies? She asked. Mama cuts my sandwiches into butterflies. I love butterflies. Lily took her hand and led her to the kitchen table to see the drawings. Grandma Edith looked at each one as if they were hanging in a gallery. When she got to the one labeled Our House, she looked at me over Lily's head. Her eyes were wet. She nodded once. That night, after Lily was asleep, Grandma Edith placed a small cardboard box on Rachel's kitchen table. Inside, 22 envelopes. Each one addressed to me, each one stamped return to sender in handwriting I recognized immediately. Gerald's handwriting, 22 Christmases, every single one sent back. I kept writing, she said quietly, because I knew one day, one letter would find you. 22 letters. 22 Christmases. She never stopped. And I spent every single one of those years believing she'd forgotten me, because that's what Gerald told me, and I had no reason not to believe my own father. But here's what I can't stop thinking. How many people out there tried to love us, and someone made sure the message never arrived? Do you think there's someone who tried to reach you, and somebody stood in the way? Because I almost missed mine, by 22 years. Gerald's 14-day deadline expired on a Wednesday at 5 p.m. On day 10, his attorney, a man named Dennis Pratchett, who appeared to handle mostly traffic citations and small claims disputes, had sent a 2-page letter to Nathan requesting a 30-day extension and stating, in language that even I could tell was weak, that trust distributions were authorized by implied family consent and conducted in the best interest of all parties. No documentation attached, no signed authorization from me, no explanation of why implied family consent overrides a beneficiary's legal rights. Just words, and not enough of them. Nathan's assessment was 3 sentences. The response lacks any substantive defense. There's no evidence of authorization. They're stalling because they don't have a case. Day 14 came and went, with no settlement offer, no real counter-argument, no acknowledgement of the forged signatures, nothing. Nathan filed a motion for an expedited hearing, citing the forensic evidence, the sworn declaration, and the pattern of retaliation. The probate court granted it. Hearing date: 3 weeks out, a Tuesday in November. On day 15, Gerald called me one last time. His voice had changed again. Gone was the threat from the email. Gone was the patriarch bark. What was left sounded hollowed out. Stella, please, can we just talk? I'm your father. We can work this out. Don't humiliate me in court. I let the word land. Humiliate. As if humiliation was something being done to him, and not something he'd done to a 5-year-old standing in a driveway with a stuffed bear. You had 14 days to work this out, Dad. You chose not to. I'll see you at the hearing. I hung up. Nathan called 20 minutes later. One more thing. Megan's birthday party is this Saturday, and the process server confirmed. The hearing summons needs to be personally served on Gerald, at his residence, by a sheriff's deputy. Saturday. The birthday party. 30 guests. It's the only confirmed time he'll be home, Nathan said. The court requires personal service. I didn't plan it this way, but I didn't stop it either. I wasn't there. I want to be clear about that. I was at Rachel's apartment with Lily that Saturday afternoon, making butterfly sandwiches and watching her teach Grandma Edith how to draw a proper unicorn. I didn't stand on the sidewalk watching. I didn't drive past. I didn't need to. Rachel's cousin knew someone who was at the party, and in a town like Caldwell, a sheriff's deputy pulling up to a birthday barbecue doesn't stay a secret for long. Here is what I was told. It was 2:15 p.m. The backyard was decorated with pink and gold balloons. 30 guests. Megan had just blown out her candles. Diane was carrying a sheet cake through the living room when the doorbell rang. Gerald answered it, still holding a paper plate, expecting a late arrival. A Caldwell County Sheriff's deputy stood on the porch. Tan uniform, clipboard. Gerald Whitmore? Yes. You've been served. He handed Gerald a large envelope. Gerald took it automatically, the way you take something from a stranger before your brain catches up. The deputy tipped his hat, turned, and walked back to his cruiser. Gerald stood in the doorway. Diane came up behind him, cake still in her hands. Who was that? Gerald. Gerald, what is... He opened the envelope. Probate court hearing summons. Full petition packet. Forensic report summary. And attached to the back, 6 pages in a clear, firm voice. Grandma Edith's sworn declaration. Diane saw the name. Edith Prescott. The cake plate tilted. She grabbed the doorframe. She's still... 30 people were watching. In the backyard, through the sliding glass door, over half-eaten slices of birthday cake. Nobody was singing anymore. Gerald looked up from the papers. According to Rachel's cousin, his face didn't show anger or surprise. It showed the expression of a man who has just realized that the ground beneath his house was never his to stand on. Probate court, Caldwell County. A Tuesday morning in November. Fluorescent lights. Wood grain laminate. The faint smell of floor polish and old paper. Not the kind of room you'd imagine for a reckoning. But then again, most reckonings don't look the way you expect. I sat at the petitioner's table beside Nathan. I wore my navy scrubs under a gray blazer because I'd come straight from a shift and because I wanted the judge to see exactly who I was, a woman who works for a living. Behind me, Grandma Edith sat in the first row, straight-backed, hands folded, 82 years old and radiating the kind of quiet authority that doesn't need volume. Across the aisle, Gerald in a rumpled suit, Dennis Pratchett flipping nervously through a folder that was visibly thinner than ours, and Diane in the row behind them. No smile today, no sweetie, no pastel cardigan. She looked gray. Nathan presented the case in under 20 minutes. Trust deed, 2004. Sole beneficiary, Stella Marie Prescott. Trustee, Gerald Whitmore. Trust distribution authorization, March 2019. Forged. Quitclaim deed, April 2019. Forged. Dr. Sims's forensic report. Signatures do not match known exemplars. Notary Janet Fry, Diane's colleague, notarized without the signatory present. Criminal referral filed. Then Grandma Edith took the stand. She didn't tremble. She didn't ramble. She spoke the way she'd always spoken to me, clearly, gently, and with absolutely no room for misunderstanding. I established the Prescott Family Trust in 2004 for one person, my granddaughter Stella. I never authorized any withdrawal. I never signed any transfer. I was told my granddaughter didn't want me in her life. I have 22 letters, returned in my son-in-law's handwriting, that prove otherwise. Dennis Pratchett attempted to argue implied family authorization. The judge cut him off mid-sentence. Fiduciary duty is not subject to implied consent, counselor. The trustee's obligations are explicit and documented. The judge looked at Gerald the way I've seen doctors look at patients who waited too long. Not angry. Just certain of the diagnosis. The judge issued the ruling from the bench that same afternoon. Expedited, he said, because the evidence left no ambiguity. I sat still and listened to a man in a black robe dismantle the architecture of a lie that had taken my father 22 years to build. First, Gerald A. Whitmore was immediately removed as trustee of the Prescott Family Trust. The court appointed an independent fiduciary, a licensed professional trustee with no connection to either party. Second, restitution. Gerald and Diane Whitmore were ordered to repay $210,000 in misappropriated trust principal, plus $38,000 in accrued interest, for a total of $248,000. Payment due within 90 days. Failure to comply would result in a court-ordered lien on their real property, meaning their house. Third, the 2019 quitclaim deed transferring 412 Birchwood Street was declared void. Since the property had already been sold and the proceeds used as a down payment on the Whitmore's current residence, equity tracing applied. In plain terms, if they couldn't produce $248,000 in 90 days, they'd have to sell the house or face forced sale through the lien. Fourth, the criminal referral to the district attorney was sustained. Gerald faced felony forgery charges under California Penal Code 470. Janet Fry, the notary, had already been summoned separately. Her notary commission revoked, a misdemeanor charge pending. Gerald didn't move when the judge finished. He sat in his chair with his hands flat on the table like a man trying to keep the room from spinning. Diane made a sound behind him. Not a word, just a sound, like air leaving a tire. Outside the courtroom, Grandma Edith took my hand. Her grip was small and firm and warm. Your mama would be proud, baby girl. $248,000. Not revenge, restitution. There's a difference. Revenge is about making someone hurt. Restitution is about getting back what's yours. 1 week after the ruling, Gerald called. I almost didn't answer. But something in me, the last remaining thread of the girl who used to ride in Grandma Edith's green Buick, picked up. He didn't sound like my father. He sounded like a man who'd been sitting in the same chair for 7 days, going over the math and watching it come out wrong every time. Stella, we have to sell the house. I said nothing. She's not coping. She won't eat. Megan's looking for apartments, but she's never paid rent in her life, and she doesn't... His voice cracked. She doesn't know how. I waited. Can you talk to the judge? Reduce the amount? For the kids' sake? Megan's kids? They're just children. They didn't... You told me there was no space for my child. I said it evenly, the way I deliver news in the ER. Clear, calm, no editorializing. In a house you bought with money meant for her. You forged my name. You lied to my grandmother for 22 years. You cut me off from the only person on my mother's side who wanted me, and now you're asking me to fix this for you. Silence. Long, heavy with the sound of someone who has run out of narrative. I won't make your life harder than the court already has, Dad. But I won't make it easier either. The trust will be repaid. That's not negotiable. One more beat of silence. Then, goodbye, Dad. I set the phone on the kitchen counter. I didn't slam it. I didn't cry. I just set it down the way you set down something you've been carrying too long and finally realize you're allowed to put down. That evening, Diane's Facebook went dark. Every post deleted. Megan's family dinner photos, gone. The group chat that had buzzed with prayer hands and accusations fell silent, one by one, like lights going off in a house nobody could afford anymore. I didn't watch. I didn't check. I was done looking in that direction. 4 months later, the trust was repaid in full. Every dollar, every cent of interest. Gerald and Diane sold the house in 63 days, at a loss. I didn't ask where they went. I didn't need to know. With the trust restored and an independent trustee managing it properly for the first time, I put a down payment on a 2-bedroom cottage on Maplewood Lane, half a mile from the hospital, 3 blocks from Lily's new school. It had a small yard, a kitchen with actual counter space, and a front door that I painted red on the first Saturday we moved in. Lily stood in the driveway and pointed at it like she'd conjured it out of a crayon. "Mama, it's the door, from my drawing." "You designed it, baby. I just made it real." Grandma Edith moved back to California that winter. She rented a 1-bedroom apartment 10 minutes from us, close enough to walk when the weather was good, and it was good most days. Every Saturday morning, she and Lily baked cornbread in my kitchen. The house smelled like butter and warmth, and Lily learned to crack eggs without getting shell in the batter, and Grandma Edith hummed the same hymns she used to sing to me on Birchwood Street. We planted lavender along the front walk. Lily watered it every evening with a pink watering can, Biscuit wedged under her arm, talking to each plant like it was a friend she was catching up with. I started seeing a therapist. Not because I was broken, but because 22 years of carrying someone else's lies had left grooves in the way I thought about myself, and I wanted to smooth them out. I wanted to be the kind of steady that was real, not performed. In Lily's room, taped to the wall above her bed, was the original drawing. Our house, red door, 2 hearts on the roof. Next to it, a new one. Our real house, same red door. But now there were 3 people in front of it, me, Lily, and a small white-haired figure labeled in careful kindergarten letters, Great Grandma. The star nightlight still glowed by her pillow. Biscuit still sat on the bed. Some things you don't outgrow. You just finally give them the right home. I'm sitting on my front porch as I tell you this. It's a Sunday morning. The coffee's hot, the lavender's blooming, and through the kitchen window I can hear Lily giggling at something Grandma Edith said over cornbread batter. The kind of sound that fills a house the way sunlight fills a room, without trying, without asking permission, just because it belongs there. My father's criminal case is still making its way through the system. I don't follow it closely. Nathan sends updates when there's something I need to know. The forgery charge stands. Janet Fry's notary commission is permanently revoked. These are consequences, not punishments I designed. They're the natural weight of choices Gerald and Diane made long before I ever opened that box. Some of the relatives who sent me those prayer hands texts have reached out since. A few apologized. Most haven't. I'm okay with that. I didn't do this for their approval. I did it because my daughter asked me if she was too big, and the answer to that question couldn't stay inside a notes app forever. Gerald hasn't called again. Neither has Diane. Neither has Megan. The silence where their voices used to be doesn't feel empty. It feels like a room that's been cleared of furniture that was never mine, and now there's space to breathe. Lily asked me last week why our front door is red. I told her because she drew it that way, a long time ago, in a house that wasn't ours yet. She nodded like this made perfect sense. I knew it would come true, she said. 5-year-olds understand faith better than most adults. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it because my daughter deserved to know that when someone tells you there's no space for you, the answer isn't to make yourself smaller. It's to find out who's been taking up your space all along. And if you're out there, if your family ever made you feel like you were too much, you weren't. You were just in a house that was too small for the truth. I used to be afraid of silence in our apartment. Now, the silence in our house sounds different. It sounds like peace. It sounds like enough. That's my story. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. It means more than you know. If any part of this reached you, if you've ever had to build your own table because the one you were born into didn't have room for you, leave a comment. Tell me your story. I read every single one, and you are not alone in this. If you want to hear another story about a mother who refused to stay silent, check the link in the description. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and the people who actually deserve a seat at your table.